Rishi Sunak is caught in a sort of pincer movement today with two scandals at the same time. It's quite extraordinary. How does he manage to have two scandals when most people can barely manage one? Russell Brand has only got one scandal. Rishi Sunak's got two. So the one scandal is that he's being excoriated, castigated, condemned for not bringing his big announcement to Parliament last night. There's plenty of time. Parliament rose at 4:30, I think. There was time for him to have made an announcement that he was pulling back on all these green commitments. But when it came to his speech, the green commitment stuff was extraordinary. And what he's now accused of is a strawman politics fantasy. He talks about we're scrapping the plans to have 7 bins. Well, there never were any plans to have 7 bins per household. This has been contradicted by DEFRA. He's scrapping the plans of taxes on meat, but there never were any plans for taxes on meat. This has been contradicted by the business department. So people in his own government, around his own drinks cabinet, are contradicting what he's saying is the big announcement that he in turn is then getting slapped on the wrist about by the Speaker of the House of Commons, because those big announcements should be made to Parliament first. It's extraordinary. And then all the usual sort of net zero climate people are coming out to condemn his reining in on the net zero. Boris Johnson, of course, Chris Skidmore, Alok Sharma, the COP27 president, Zack Goldsmith. Zack Goldsmith has been extremely vocal today. And he was attacked by Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch said, Kemi Badenoch has sort of risen from the ashes of Nadine Dorries, like some sort of maniacal goddess. She has said that Zack Goldsmith is too rich to understand the costs of net zero. He's got way more money than pretty much everyone in the UK. Is this a sneer of envy, Kemi Badenoch? I don't know. Anyway, there we've got Rishi Sunak scrapping policies that simply do not exist, and that's what Goldsmith has said. Goldsmith said he is pretending to halt policies that simply do not exist, cancelling a set of policies the government hasn't even advanced yet, hasn't even established. Gove has got in on this one, and Gove has warned against injecting anti-climate change rhetoric into the current debate in the run-up to an assumed early election. Maybe that anti-climate change rhetoric is spurred on by the observation that Sadiq Khan's ULEZ scheme has proven to be unpopular and possibly unworkable. It's at a time, incidentally, when the King is in France, or has just left France, and has called global warming our existential challenge, speaking in the French Senate chamber and barely meriting any time on the BBC itself. That BBC broadcasting, supposed to be the national broadcast, is itself locked into debate about Russell Brand. I think the BBC should be leaving the Russell Brand debate to the Times, the Sunday Times, Channel 4, that put forward the case in the first place, or to people on social media who at least that's where the debate is festering. That's where the debate is taking form. That's where the debate is developing. The BBC should be concentrating on the stuff which is of national interest. I don't think the Russell Brand thing is of national interest. I think the Russell Brand thing is a very interesting subject, but for social media. It's not really for the national media. And as I said a while ago, I think a lot of the stuff in the Russell Brand story is missing. I think what we were told on Friday or Saturday, it just seemed a sort of damp squib by the time it arrived. And what we got from the Times, and then it was simply repeated in dispatches and a little more detail, but not much more detail, frankly, in the Times on Sunday. I think something's missing. I think there was maybe another person was going to be exposed, and they managed to slap down some sort of writ. That was my assumption. As for Russell Brand himself, I think I've made the record very clear. I don't like him. And when I went back and sort of reviewed the various stories, the story about Topsy the dog, the story about the Andrew Sachs affair, the Sachs Gate, those are the reasons I dislike Russell Brand. Those are the reasons that I personally wouldn't be visiting his website with any great regularity. And I think it's about reputation. I think finally the world has caught up with my attitude to Russell Brand. Great! I'm delighted that finally the rest of social media takes my view. But the possibility that there are criminal issues here is an entirely different one, and all the way through, I think we should be extremely kind and understanding, and give time to those people who are brave enough to tell their stories about being victims. If they're not victims of Russell Brand, they're victims of something, aren't they? Because they've had a harrowing and a difficult time. It takes time to pluck up the courage to talk to the media, and no doubt many of these people have already tried talking to the police and the authorities and were dismissed. The police are not terribly respectful or thoughtful about these stories, particularly not, it seems, when it concerns a celebrity and then suddenly it's fashionable. I think the BBC should be dealing with the jobs of the BBC and get on with the jobs properly. And the same thing with the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport. It's, again, jumping on a bandwagon. Why? Because it doesn't want to be seen to be caught napping. It's been caught napping in the past. It was caught napping about reality TV. And this doesn't resolve that problem. This doesn't exonerate them. A dreadful organisation, Digital Culture, Media and Sport. Dreadful secretaries of state leading that organisation. There are one or two spectacular people sitting on the committee, like John Nicholson, who always asks a pointed question, doesn't always get a pointed answer. And Ofcom, the poodle of the DCMS. What is the point of these organisations if they don't do their job? And if all they do is get in on a story that happens to be hogging the news? It shouldn't be hogging the news. The Times, the Sunday Times, and Channel 4 dispatches did a good job in getting the story out. And this isn't a story for the BBC. This is a story, certainly, for social media and for people to be debating whether or not it's right to be deplatformed, whether or not it's right to whether this in some way exposes some of the aspects of cancel culture, which of course we should reject as much as possible. But it's not the role of the BBC.